Hey, welcome to the next video of the Pride box set. This one we've titled 7 Signs You Have Pride. And yes, that sounds like a fun title for us today. But it's going to be good. We're going to be joyful about it because we do not want to be in opposition to God. So we are going to be willing to identify pride. And that is the main aim of this video, is to give you signs to identify pride within you. Because the funny thing about the sin of pride is that it makes you think you don't even have the sin. It makes you think you're doing better than you think you are. It almost gives you not a sober judgment, as the Bible talks about. It makes you think you're doing better. It makes you think that nobody else could really call that out in you, because who are they to call that out in you? So pride actually masks itself, and it can be very dangerous because of that. The way that we're going to talk about the signs is I'm actually going to share with you when pride was really first called out and rebuked in me. And I'm going to give you the 7 signs I kind of bumped into along that journey of processing my pride and trying to identify and eliminate it from my life. So are you ready? Are you feeling pumped about this? Are you like, yes, amen, I'm going to be rebuked today? That's the challenge. Whenever we read the Bible, I always find it does that to me. So here we go. Let me tell you the story. When I was 21 years of age, I was invited to the senior pastor's office, who was the senior pastor, the former leader, let me say that, it's the former leader of the church. And he had invited me, a 21-year-old boy, to his office to have a special meeting. Now, I tell you, the pride in me loved that. The ego definitely was stroked. I was so blessed. I'm sure he wanted to have a meeting with me to tell me what an amazing job I'm doing, how anointed I am, what a gift I am to the church. But that is not how the story goes. I arrive at his office. I'm very excited. I think I even told people, I was like, oh, I've got a meeting with this person. He's a legend. And he's a legend in this church. He's a legend in the nation. I'm really excited. I sit down in this meeting. I look at him. And he says to me, Liam, I'm going to tell you and rebuke the pride within you, and you are not allowed to say anything back to me at all. That's how the conversation began. And I knew I was in for it. And for the next hour and a half, he is going to tell me why I do, in fact, have pride in my life. And I was not allowed to say a word. If I tried to, he'd be like, don't say a word. And he just came at me. I tell you now, though, I am truly, truly thankful for that moment in my life. It set me down on a deeper path in my soul. It helped me to work on things that were hidden beneath the surface and helped me to become a mature believer. But after having an hour and a half of somebody tell you why you in fact have pride, I tell you, some things arose in me which I now identify as signs of pride. Number 1, are you ready? The first sign I hit that said, Liam, you do in fact have pride. Are you ready? Number 1, you know you've got pride if you struggle to submit to authority. I was sitting there in this moment having a man of God who is senior in experience, senior in anointing, senior in age, telling me I had pride, and I had to decide, am I going to actually listen to this man, or am I going to fight this man? Am I going to actually submit myself and say, you know what, I'm going to learn from him, I'm going to listen to what he said over me, and I'm going to take it as truth from him? You have to decide, are you going to do that? Honestly, so many people walk through the world and they don't have somebody in their life that can actually confront them and be fully honest with them and call them out for being wrong and bad in attitude or action. My friends, all of us need counsel in our lives, need authority in our lives, that when they say, this is wrong, we don't like this about you, I'm going to correct this attitude within you, you look at them and you say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, I'm going to do as you have asked because I've decided to submit to your authority. Guys, this is so important, to be willing to say, I believe that God has placed you in my life to help guide me and challenge me and push me forward. So I say, I submit to your words. And I had to decide, am I going to submit to this guy? Now, thankful for me, I decided to submit to that guy. But I tell you, the very next thing that arose within me when I decided to do that was, okay, if I'm not going to attack him, maybe I need to sort of defend myself. And I hit sign number 2. You know you have pride if you are easily offended or defensive. Come on. He's telling me for an hour and a half, I've got pride. I'm not allowed to say a word. How many of you know, for a prideful person, that is the worst? I had so many arguments and justifications built up within me. I was ready to fire on all cylinders. I decided not to, but let me explain what was going on in my head. In my head, I wanted to justify it. And what's funny about the justification of pride is it always sounds so noble. Oh, I didn't know I was coming across like that. It's not really a heart problem. I don't really think that within. I'm sorry if it came across like that to you. That's not what it's really within me. And I love that justification. We often do it so much with any sin because it separates me from my action. And then it then means I only have to deal with my action, not really dig down deep within my soul. But I tell you, if it's coming out of me, it's in me. The mouth speaks what the heart is full of. If he is calling me out for being prideful, I'm telling you, it's coming out of my mouth. Therefore, it's overflowing in my heart. I need to address it. I don't need to defend it or be offended by the fact he did this to me. I could just simply say, you know what? Maybe he's right, and maybe here is a chance for me to grow in God. Do not get defensive. If you find yourself, and when you're in a conversation with people and you find yourself at the end, the butt of a joke, as they say, or maybe people are starting to talk and you're trying to make your opinion heard, but it's not being heard, and you feel this defensiveness rise within you, it's pride. It's okay to not be right all the time. It's okay to get it wrong. It's okay to be challenged and to be rebuked. It's good for you. So don't be defensive and get easily offended by things. Learn to take some things on the chin. It does help you, I promise. And I tell you, I left the office after this chat. I was upset, to say the least. Holding back tears. Obviously, didn't want to cry walking through an office. Really angry, upset. And I tell you, the next sign that bumped into me that I had to fight was this sign. You find it very easy to criticize people. You criticize people. You are overly critical. You criticize people who have success and more than you. I could have easily left this office and just simply decided if I can't defend myself because he won't let me talk, I'm instead going to criticize him. Because if I criticize him, that means I can just point out all the flaws that he carries, and I don't really have to deal with my stuff until he deals with his stuff. And I tell you, anyone I want to, I can find flaws in. We all know this. I could have called him out for the way he rebuked me. I thought it was a bit harsh. He could have let me say something. He didn't have to go on for an hour and a half. He didn't have to raise his voice at me. I could have gone on about that. I could have even called out pride in him. I could have said, well, he's got pride. So who is he to tell me that I've got pride? Guys, listen. Wisdom and truth from the scriptures is always going to come through these broken vessels. Don't pay attention to the broken vessels they come through. Pay attention to the truth and the goodness that it is. Just because he might have pride doesn't mean I don't have to deal with mine. And I could have easily spent my time criticizing him, saying, oh, he doesn't have the right to tell me these kind of things. My friends, if you find yourself very critical of people around you, people that challenge you, or even people that have success in an area you want to have success, challenge yourself. Is this a sign of pride? Because I see it so often, especially in the Christian world, when somebody becomes successful and God is using them powerfully and mightily, it's very easy. We just want to find flaws in them so that we can say, well, the reason that they're successful is because they've cut corners or they've done these bad things, and that's why they're successful and I'm not. We become very critical of people. Instead of criticizing everybody else, maybe point that criticism towards yourself. What do I need to grow in? What do I need to change to become more like Christ? My friends, look at the speck of dust in your own eye before you start, in your own eye before you start addressing the speck of dust in everybody else's. My friends, do not start criticizing. I leave that meeting, I go home. How many of you have been challenged before on things? And then when you go home, you ask somebody else and you hope that they'll say, oh, I've never thought that about you. And then they say something like, oh yeah, I've been wondering that about you. Isn't that the worst thing? Because then you start to think, does everybody think this about me? I remember when someone told me I had a big nose once. And I went to a friend of mine, a very close friend, and I said to him, I got told I had a big nose. And they went to me, you know, I've always thought you had a big nose. And I was like, what? Why is everybody thinking this about me? And what's funny is when I found out other people had this view, I had to fight two different things that arose in me when I then started having interactions with these people, and I want to help you with them. These are other signs I knew I still had to deal with pride. The first thing I had to notice, and here's the next fourth sign, is that I became vain about my appearance. Not how I necessarily look, although that is definitely a sign of pride as well. If you struggle to leave the house without looking a certain way, it's pride. If you don't like photos of you on social media unless they look a certain way, it's pride. In fact, maybe some of you can't go a day without being on social media and having your picture on there. Also, it's vain and it's pride. I'm really talking here about being vain about your image. So not how you appear, but how others see you. You're vain about your reputation. You see, and I noticed within myself, when I started to find out other people actually shared this view with this leader that rebuked me, I started to want to try and prove myself. Have you ever been there before? You know, you start striving to make sure people know that actually you're a good person and you do things right. And you start trying to almost become too intense in conversations, trying to prove yourself. I see this a lot in the spiritual game. People try really hard to prove that they are spiritual. They try and tell me about all the things that God has done for them and all the things that the gifting that they carry. And we strive and we're trying to make ourselves appear in a certain way before other people. We hate having our reputation tarnished. My friends, you follow and believe in a man whose reputation was destroyed to a point where they murdered him as a criminal. You are a Christian. Get used to having your reputation twisted, demeaned, and misunderstood. The Bible even warns about that in Matthew 10. People are going to misunderstand your reputation. Do not get defensive about it. If someone says you're a bad Christian, parent, leader, worker, employee, boss, don't get carried away and start striving to prove yourself. It's okay when people don't like you. It's okay when people misunderstand you. Do not try and prove yourself. And the next thing I noticed within these conversations, as I'm trying to prove myself, a way that I prove myself, which I really want to call out, is I hit sign number 5. I wanted to story top. Oh, come on. Anybody want to admit to being a story topper out there? When somebody else shared a story and or experience, I would wait for my moment to share a similar story or experience so that I may also look as good as that person is now appearing to look. I would try and story top people. And it's not just that I would simply try and beat them with another story. It's that really I was started to have conversations with people where I'd hear them, but I wasn't listening to them. I would only hear them in order to wait for my moment so that I could speak. Have you ever been in a conversation like that? When really it doesn't feel like any of us are listening to each other. We're all just waiting for our moment to speak. And I'm like, that's not conversation. Conversation is listening and asking questions. My friends, if you find yourself always telling stories about yourself, always controlling conversation, maybe, just maybe, you got some pride to deal with. And then here's the best bit. I go home, right? You're praying about this. God, is this really true about me? You know, what I love about God is he's always very blunt with me. And he's basically like, yes, it's true. But what God showed me in prayer and study of the scriptures was that these things of like submitting to authority and criticizing people, wanting to story top and strive, these were actually surface level things which were actually hiding some really deep level misunderstandings and pride within me. And in prayer, I was revealed to me 2 things that really challenged the core of me, which I want to share with you today because I feel like, hey, you want to know about them as well. And maybe you might be struggling with them. You ready for sign number 6 that I received during prayer? You think people, pastors, and the world owe you something. You have a spirit of entitlement. Let me phrase it in another way, which I actually got from a young boy who at least was honest about the fact that he actually believed this kind of sense of entitlement towards the world. When I was a youth pastor coming to the end of my days, and that sounds so dramatic, when I was stopping to becoming a youth pastor, a family had come to us and said, we're really struggling with our eldest boy, he's a young teenager, and he gets really angry and loses his temper all the time. And I decided, you know what, I haven't sat with the kind of that age group for a while, so I'm going to personally mentor this boy. What a gift to him, to have me personally mentor him. And I decided I'm going to personally mentor him. I sat down with him and we start asking, why are you angry? What makes you angry? Why do you feel like you need to lose it and let it out on all your family? And we start having this conversation. He says to me, well, I don't like it when my mum says this, or that my dad does this, or they take away my Xbox, or they ban me from social media. I don't like it when they do these things. Now, I know what his problem is, but I want him to figure it out. So I decided to pose it in a way of a question, which, by the way, is a good pastoring technique if you ever want it. And I said to him, it sounds like to me that you want what you want when you want it. Now, I'm hoping that he turns around and goes, wow, Pastor, that's amazing. I need to humble myself, get on my knees. Please forgive me and help me grow. And he looks at me and with a smile on his face and a sigh of relief says, yes, that's it. That's what I want. And I'm like, what? You think that's a good thing? And he actually was so happy. I almost respect the boy for being so confident about it. He was like, yes, I want what I want when I want it. And I laughed, and I'm kind of like so blown away by his sheer confidence and arrogance and sense of entitlement. But at least he's honest about it. What I used to love about working with teenagers, they had no mask. They would just be very open and honest with you. They would wear their emotions really on their sleeves. Whereas when you get to being an adult, you learn to put on masks. And the truth is, I wonder how many of us out there secretly still carry this sense of entitlement that we want what we want when we want it. That's why credit cards came about, isn't it? That's why Amazon got developed. That's why speed takeaway fast food came about, because we want what we want when we want it. And I had to wrestle within myself. Is that my attitude when I went to this church where I got rebuked? Did I go to this church thinking, I'm going to this church and I want to get what I want when I want it? If I'm a preacher, so they should be asking me to preach. I should be listened to, so why aren't they asking me to speak? I should be getting paid, so why aren't I getting paid? And this sense of entitlement can grow, and it can even grow to such a point that you believe you are a gift. That I had to wrestle with myself. Did I really believe I was a gift to my church? Or maybe actually the church was meant to be a gift to me. I started to believe maybe I'm actually so good that this church is lucky to have me. And please don't leave me hanging on this one thinking, this is not me. How many of you think actually my husband or wife, man, they're so blessed to have me as their husband and wife? Or maybe your kids, man, they are so lucky to have me as their parent. I am a gift to them. Or your employer, man, this business has no idea how blessed it is to have someone of such education, of such attitude, of such humility, working amongst them, shining the light of Christ, having the favor of God poured about. They have no idea how blessed they are to have me. This is the sense of entitlement. And I just want to challenge you. Do we secretly, deeply carry this belief wherever we go? Do we arrive at a church and think, I am here to bring about change in this church. I am a gift to this church. Or do we think maybe this church is a gift of God for me? Guys, I want to challenge you to really think about that. But here is the deepest level of pride I had to really address in my life. This one's very personal to me, but I'm hoping you can relate the point to your life. Sign number 7 that really cut the roots out of pride in my life is this. You want to see revival, but only if it comes through you. You see, guys, I wanted to see a move of God. I wanted to bring revival and the kingdom of God to the earth. But when I really sat down and was honest with myself, I found it very hard when it came through others. I secretly wanted it to be me. I wanted to be the special one. I wanted to be the anointed one. I wanted to be the one on demand, the one that was busy, the one that lived the best kind of life. I wanted to be that guy. Now, take whatever situation you want. Maybe you're not trying to see revival. Maybe you're trying to grow the best business or be the best CEO. Or maybe you're trying to be the best parent and you really want everybody else to see that about you and recognize, wow, how special a mum you are. Or wow, what a kind of incredible husband you are. And we secretly want others to do that. And we don't even want it to come through others. We want it to be us. We want to be the special ones on demand. So let me really ask you, are you okay if you are not the best at something? Are you okay if somebody else is more significant in that way than you? Am I okay, Liam Parker, are you okay if another church arrives in the Surrey area and is more significant to this area than our church? Am I okay? And that's pride, my friends. To say, you know what, I don't need to be that guy. So 7 signs that you may have pride. You struggle to submit to authority. You're easily offended or defensive. You criticize people who have success. You're vain about appearance. You story top. You think people, pastors, and the world, well, they owe you something. And finally, you want to see revival, but only if it comes through you. You want to be the special one. To end this video, I want to remind you that a view that I'm now carrying in my life is that Christianity and being called to be a Christian is not here to make me look special, but here to make Christ look special. I don't need to be the anointed one because Christ is the anointed one. I'm here now, I live on this earth now to make Christ famous and to live for that audience of one, to just hear his applause that says, well done, my good and faithful servant. Christ is the special one. Let's continue to lift him up. And a way that we can do that today is by addressing the 7 signs of pride that we have in our lives. Come back for the next video.